I'm Lauren Green, and you're in the strategy room. Stalled negotiations over Iran's nuclear program are lowering any chances that six world powers and Tehran can come to an agreement before the self-imposed March 31st deadline. Both sides continue to have reservations over finding a compromise on several issues, including nuclear development and sanctions. And joining us to discuss are Tzvi Khan from the Foreign Policy Initiative and James Robbins with the American Foreign Policy Council. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Tzvi, let me start with you. What are some of the main sticking points in the negotiations?
Well, there are two main sticking points. Number one relates to the extent that Iran will be able to maintain its nuclear capacity. And number two will be the extent to which the rate at which Iran's sanctions on Iran will be relieved. When we think of Iran's nuclear capacity, there are two main components to it. Number one is its uranium enrichment program, and the number two is its plutonium path to the bomb. These are the two main ways that Iran can develop a nuclear weapon. So the question will be, will Iran be able to maintain its heavy water reactor, which is the main pathway to which it could develop plutonium? And number two, what will be the extent of its nuclear enrichment program? Now, we've already heard reports that the administration is prepared to allow Iran to maintain up to 6,500 centrifuges. Will the United States and the P5+1 adhere to that limit? Those are questions that remain to be seen. With respect to sanctions, Iran is demanding that sanctions be lifted immediately upon any deal. Now, quite understandably, the P5+1 is quite hesitant to allow such a thing. They claim that they want to see Iran sanctions lifted gradually, such that the United States and its partners would have the ability to verify any nuclear breakout and respond in kind. So I think over the next few days and weeks, what we're going to see in the negotiations are an effort to really reach some sort of compromise on those issues.
You know, James, one of the things that Bibi Netanyahu warned the West about was never trusting Iran. And Iran maintains its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. How will the West then guarantee that or make sure that that is the case?
Well, we don't know yet what the verification regime for this agreement is going to be. The Iranians do not want it to be intrusive. They just want to be monitored like any other country. But already, even under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, where Iran is already monitored, the United Nations has seen Iran doing things that are very questionable, things that might already be violations of that treaty. The Iranians only allow certain of their facilities to be inspected. They don't allow everything to be inspected. So will this new agreement allow blanket access to everything that they have, or will the Iranians say, well, we're going to make this agreement, but you still can't look at everything we have and you still can't see what we're doing? If that's the case, then we have no reason to trust them, because why are they keeping it secret?
Well, Tzvi, this is one issue that, again, I have to bring back Bibi Netanyahu talked about in terms of how long can you trust Iran, even if the sanctions are lifted today, for how long? I mean, Iran has a much longer view on history and the future than the American politicians. Tzvi?
That's exactly right. The truth is there's very little reason to trust Iran. And to illustrate that point, you can only look at what's been happening over the last 2 years since November 2013, since the interim agreement was first reached. Iran has repeatedly accelerated its nuclear program during that time as the negotiations were taking place. In certain cases, even violating the interim agreement, and other cases kind of using loopholes or omissions within the agreement in order to advance its program. So, for example, it's acquired parts for the Iraq heavy water reactor, which is used to develop plutonium for a nuclear bomb. It's pursued the weaponization of its nuclear program and denied access to inspectors to its weaponization its facilities. It's refused to answer questions about the past military dimensions of its nuclear program, also known as PMD. And if this record is indicative of Iran's intentions, as I think it is, then there's very little reason to assume automatically that we can trust it in the future.
Well, I want to bring up, James, the idea of sanctions, because that's one of the things that's being negotiated. Will sanctions be lifted, and on what specifically? And what have sanctions done to Iran? I mean, has it really hurt the country or not?
Well, sanctions have hurt Iran. They have have suppressed their economic growth, made life more difficult for at least the average Iranian. I don't know if that hurts the leadership any. We found during the Soviet period that sanctions tended to hurt everyday people more than the leadership. I think that if the agreement is that the sanctions are lifted immediately, that would be a great mistake. Now, the White House is saying that that's not what they want. But on the other hand, the White House is also saying that they don't want new sanctions. They don't want more sanctions to try to force a better agreement on this. So I think that the Iranians sense that they have a pretty strong hand in trying to get these things lifted immediately. And that would be a big mistake, because then their economy would be able to rebound. They would have a lot more money to funnel into the other things that they're doing that we don't like support for terrorism and developing ballistic missiles.
Yeah, I want to get your predictions on whether or not there could be a deal. Zvi, predictions, chances of a deal either by the end of the month or just in general?
I don't know. I can't make a prediction. But what I would say is this. If there is a deal, it would be a deal that would involve us moving far closer to their positions on the issues than they're moving closer to ours. And the reason I say this is because throughout the negotiations, the United States and its partners in these negotiations have really defined compliance down. Let's recall that as early as 2 years ago, the United States' position on these negotiations was that Iran would not be allowed, would have no right to enrich uranium. Today, the United States has conceded that point and now allows Iran to have at least up to 6,500 centrifuges, according to reports.
I want to get James' predictions on this as well. We've kind of got to the end of our time limit here. But James, your predictions on whether or not there's going to be a deal by the end of the month, or even in general?
Well, they already moved. This is the third time that they've moved the timeline. They just moved it a week. I think they're going to move it another 3 months, and in part because the Iranians keep increasing their demands. I think in the end, the Iranians may be the ones who scuttle this agreement.
Very interesting stuff. All right, Zvi and James, thank you very much for joining us. You want to check out foxnews.com for more on the Iran nuclear talks. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.